Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Today we followed the launch of Raila Odinga's AUC bid in State House, and there is every indication that Raila is going for the African Union position full blast. The lion is out. We agreed in the continent when he goes out of the country, we cannot riddle him with the local political baggage that has been going on. I want us to look at this, but first we are in the last stretch. Today is Tuesday. We are in the last stretch of Kilifi mission. Today I was able to spearhead, rather to preside over the other activities of the construction of the houses that were going on Kilifi mission. For those who are hearing this for the first time, these elderly women come from a place known as Magarini in Kilifi County. They're really vulnerable and they're staying in those, really if you look at those structures, they're not in good shape. So as Team Charity, Bold Charity Network, under Granny Care as a program we're developing, we are supporting them with two interventions. The first intervention is setting up those structures, those houses, so that at least they can be safe for them, safe shelter for them. And then we're also supposed to do some food donation on Thursday. So we only have today and Wednesday for the fundraiser. My deficit is around 71,000. So that is what I remain with. I'm imploring on you that if you can be able to participate and support this initiative, kindly, any amount will go in a big way in supporting this. The deficit is only 70,000. We'll be able to do food donation, and of course we shall also purchase the mattresses and the other things that are needed for that group of the elderly group. So these are 15 of them. That is the team, that is the group we are supporting. That's why I'm in Kilifi. I'm still shooting from Kilifi. And they were being supported by one of us, one of our members here, who is a former military officer, but he fell ill and has been bedridden for around 6 months. So even today I spent time with him in the hospital. So we decided that he requested that we come through to support this initiative, and that is why we got here. So we do this. When we are finishing, we will finish with Kilifi this month, and next month the next stop will be in another county where you are the one that will decide. So if you're already doing something with this group or in some home for the elderly, you can you run a home for the elderly, you can reach out to us and we'll be able to support under the Granny Care 85 and above. And I can tell you that this is a big impact on us. It will have a big impact on us as a group. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us to listen to a speech by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
They are discovering that they need East Africa. They need Africa. Because the little prosperity we have is because when you allow us, when you buy our products, tunakwenda you. When you close us, like I have heard now, you have closed the sugar now. Please, fungua sukari. When you close mkitufungia mayai, eggs, maziwa, sukari, mahindi, all that blocks us. So therefore, that's where the second principle of our movement comes in. In order to ensure prosperity for Africa, you need patriotism in each country and Panafricanism in the whole of Africa. And so on. So therefore, leadership should be part of the socio-economic medicine to analyze what our societies lack and provide a diagnosis. Therefore, in the case of the African Union, I always see people coming, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that. But what are you going to? Now the African Union is a crucial point, because as Right Honorable Odinga was saying, it is the one which can enable us to negotiate together, to put pressure on those other groups, Wazungu, Wahindi, wa China, wa America, to negotiate with them. And I am here to support the candidature of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga on behalf of Uganda, because he is a convinced Pan-Africanist. Before he came, there was a young man from Djibouti. He came. The young man I normally see him that he's a minister. He came and told me that he was the one who was the candidate for Djibouti. Of course, I greeted him well. We took photographs. We had a cup of tea. But I told him, I said, no. I actually told him that I was coming here to support Right Honorable Raila, because he's a candidate who is fit for this job. Because it is a job of vision, it is a job of conviction, it is a job of knowledge. So therefore, on top of the patriotism, you love Kenya, you love Uganda, you love Tanzania. Why? Because you need them, you individually. But as you heard His Excellency Raila say, not only do you need the market integration on paper, but you need also the infrastructure. You need the infrastructure. But you also need the peace. You need the peace. So that's why our second element, our second strategic mission in our movement is the issue of strategic security. How can Africa ensure its strategic security? We are here. Some people have gone to the moon. Have you heard of people who have gone to the moon? There are 4 people in the world who have gone to the moon. The Americans have gone there. The Russians, the Chinese, and the Indians recently. For us, we are here. Those people are on the moon. You know, when I was fighting, I could hide in the forest. And if this is the hill, somebody on this side will not see me when I'm hiding here. But if somebody is on the moon and you are here, he's looking at you, and you don't even know that he's looking at you. We are like ants. Hivi vidudu vinakula sukari huko hapo, mtu anaviangalia, havijui kwamba anaviangalia. You can bring doom, you can bring insects. This is not acceptable. And this is all caused by us, by the ideological bankruptcy of the people who want to manage Africa's affairs. Africa is very strong. We defeated the Europeans here by war, not just by talking. The Mau Mau in Kenya here, the Algerians, Samara Machel, supported by Mwalimu and by Kaunda, defeated the Portuguese army, total defeat. In 1974, I was involved in those fights. America Cabral in Guinea-Bissau, Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, our people there defeated Ian Smith by war, and we liberated South Africa. But after that, we have not consolidated. That's where the problem is. We suffer from arrivism. Tumefika kwenye madaraka, mambo yameishia hapo.
Museveni is talking about Africa needs each other. Museveni is talking about Africa, the person that needs to lead Africa must ensure that Africa breaks from the yokes of the European powers, something that has been amiss for the quite a number of decades. And he is directly sending a message that if Africa is united, they can be able to beat the European powers that have always downlooked on Africa. His speech, even though to the tail end, is talking about how Babu Owino and the team are, about some internal meddling with the politics in Uganda. And I think that part is actually, to me, that part is a bit unnecessary. But his message on Pan-Africanism, I don't agree with Museveni on many grounds. When it comes to the manner of politics in Uganda, that maybe most of us don't agree. But his speech on Pan-Africanism is one that you cannot doubt. And his message is very clear that Raila is the right candidate for the job, looking at his record rather in the continent. And so I just want swiftly to look at, I listened to the speeches by those who are there. They have managed to get those who have played the endorsement is DRC Congo, Tshisekedi, Uganda, Somalia did not attend, but they say they will support Tanzania, Djibouti. There was a report about Malawi. I don't know what happened. Then Burundi have also pledged their support in the East African, and there is another one from, I think also Djibouti. They've also picked someone from Djibouti and South Africa. Ramaphosa is a very close friend to Raila Odinga. So you can see how it's coming from. And so I was trying to compare the candidature. Kenya is presenting its candidature for the second time after they failed to clinch it in 2016 when Amina Mohamed was the candidate for Kenya. There are some 5 boxes that Raila Odinga ticks in this contest. This does not mean, I'm not saying that he's going to be the automatic winner, but of course as a country, we wish nothing but the best for Baba. He's had his own fair share of the trouble in the country. He's had his own fair share of hits and misses. The recent one is about that broad-based thing. We all didn't agree with that. Quite a number of us didn't agree with that. But when he steps out of the country and says, I now want to try continent, we once said no man is limited. And so for Baba, clean heart, out of the local political riddles, we wish nothing but the best for Baba, Raila Odinga. It's only during this political analysis that I normally call Raila Baba. Now, I want to look at those 5 boxes. The 5th box that Raila ticks is Pan-Africanism. Africa as a continent is looking for the man that can put the African interests on table. Let me just get a snippet of Raila's speech during that launch.
to have a peaceful development. Secondly, Africa is a victim of climate change. Africa today suffers from twin disasters: droughts and floods in the continent. Yet Africa has emitted very little of the carbon that is polluting the world. So Africa needs to be compensated. But this will not come if Africa goes to negotiate as individual countries. If we go and talk as Kenya, as Uganda, Tanzania, Nigeria, Mozambique, Egypt, or Algeria, the rest, those major offenders will not listen to us. But when we go and talk as Africa, they must listen to us. We'll be able to get a fair deal in the issue of climate change. We also need to green Africa. But Africa is also home to the second largest carbon sink in the world, the Congo forest. But how do we continue to green Africa, to arrest the desertification, southern advance of Sahara Desert? These are issues, they are challenges which you are equal to. You can be able to deal with these issues effectively if you have got an effective organization in Addis Ababa. African youth today drown in the Mediterranean, trying to get to greener pastures in Europe. It's a shame. We must arrest this trend and ensure that we create a conducive environment within the continent here. That this youth do not have to flee to go to Europe. And this will only happen if Africa works together as a united continent. We know the richest continent is also the poorest in terms of living conditions of its people. This we must put to rest. We should not continue to blame moving forward again. Therefore, we need to be able to ensure that Africa uses the resources that it has effectively. We need also to ensure that Africa also trades with itself. Africa is wasting a lot of time searching for markets where they put very unequal terms to our goods coming from Africa. The inter-African trade today stands at only 15%. Inter-European trade stands at 70%. Inter-Asian trade stands at 60%. Even inter-South American trade stands at 35%. We need to ensure that Africa trades more with itself. We need to address the constraining factors. One, the non-tariff barriers which have been imposed by other African countries against goods from neighboring countries. More importantly, we need to address the issue of infrastructure development in the continent that will make it easier for African countries to trade with each other. I have been the High Representative of African Union on the issue of infrastructure. So I know the major challenges that Africa faces in the issue of infrastructure. The trans-African highways, the Cape to Cairo, the Tunis to Cape, the Dakar through Khartoum to Djibouti, the Dakar, Lagos to Mombasa, the Beira to Lobito and Walvis Bay, the high-speed railway networks in the continent, those are issues that require to be dealt with. the Lapsets, the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia, that will continue through Bangi and go all the way to the Cameroon port of Kribi, creating a land bridge that links the Atlantic Ocean and Indian Ocean and opening up the interior landlocked countries within the continent. These are some of the issues that can be dealt with and we'll deal with. Then connecting Africa through high-speed fiber optic network. And then to facilitate faster communication. Then the issues of air transport. Air transport is a major challenge in the continent. We were talking about open skies to make air transport easier. Today, traveling across the continent is too expensive. You have to get permits to fly over countries, delaying movements, and make it too expensive. Flying over Europe is much easier than flying over Africa. We need to have a continental air control system within the continent so that people can travel from east to west, north to south without a problem. The other one are the issues of visas. My friend Aliko Dangote says that for him to travel across the continent, he needs 35 visas. His French competitor does not need a visa to travel with a French passport in Africa. What a shame. In Europe, you only need a Schengen visa, and you can travel across the entire Europe without a problem. We will also ensure that we reach a stage where we can issue an AU visa and enable people to travel across the continent without much of a problem. I therefore want to conclude by saying that I am ready for Africa.
Now, the continent is suffering a lot of infiltration from the West. And if you look at what's happening in the West Africa, what's happening in the Sahel region, and after the coup d'etats, the West African countries are trying their level best, are pushing the new agenda of breaking the yoke of the West. Just the other day, Ibrahim Traore was opening the first federal bank in Burkina Faso since its independence. Almost more than 50 years later. The central government for Burkina Faso was based in Paris, in France. Africa is seeking its independence on many factors. In South Africa, they've been speaking about, despite the fact that the US and the Russia and Germany have military bases across in the Kenya north, but that country, those areas still suffer terrorism. So you wonder, are these military bases really bases to secure the continent or just safe nets to take their own interest? And so Africa needs a man or a woman who will stand and say it's Africa first. Now you can take away anything from Raila Odinga, but listening to what Museveni is saying and his history in the continent, you cannot take away the spirit of Pan-Africanism in Raila Odinga. I think in this country, if there is a man that will still have the spirit of Pan-Africanism, that man is none other than Raila Amolo Odinga. So, to me, that is the first box he's ticked. The second box that Raila Odinga is taking is continental network. You know, I've been seeing some politicians in the country here going to rallies in the villages and saying, we pledged our support to Raila Odinga's AUC bid. We pledged our support. I've been seeing, and probably they're looking for statements to excite the crowd. Now, this bid is not a child's play. This bid is not a bid like an MP or even a president. This is very critical, and you need the global network. When they wanted to launch the candidature of Raila, the man that had to come first to support his bid was none other than the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo. Obasanjo leads a caucus non-eminent African personalities. Eminent are mostly, that group has former presidents. Someone was telling you Uhuru Kenyatta is recently the last person that joined it, recently joined it. And you can see even he traveled to South Africa after endorsement by Obasanjo. The next spot he was in South Africa. And I understand even Tanzania was thinking of fronting a candidate. But because Raila's bid gathered momentum, they decided to drop, and now Dodoma is supporting the candidature of Raila Odinga. That network is very critical, having served at that union at this critical time. And of course, by the time that he was under Uhuru Kenyatta, he served with Uhuru Kenyatta, he was in AU, with Uhuru Kenyatta as AU infrastructure envoy, he got that network and visibility. If you look at his stint as a prime minister, during the Grand Coalition government with former President Mwai Kibaki, he got his network. And I think to that end, the fellows that are also behind the bid are fellows that clearly push that agenda. One thing I believe should be injected. I have seen that campaign team. I've seen Caroline Karogo, I've seen Makau Mutua, not convincing to me. I think they should actually bring more other fellows that are not from the country, the regional, because the seat is for East Africa, Eastern Africa. Eastern Africa, but East Africa is strategizing. So that continental network is a box that Raila has. The other box is peacemaking accolades. The continent is looking for the man that will bring peace in South Sudan. The continent is looking for the man that can bring peace between the M23 rebels in DRC. For the man that will be entrusted in ensuring that there is security and stability in the continent. So the peacemaking in Ivory Coast is an accolade he had. If you look at his politics, I know it has always had its own mixed, it has always had its disadvantages and advantages. But on some diplomatic standing, Raila has a big peace accolade. If you look at handshake with Moi, it's in the history. If you look at the 2007, the post-election agreement that was signed by a former African Union chairperson, the late Kofi Annan, it put Raila in the map and is also known as a man who is a peacemaker. I know to the sovereign, at some point it doesn't work. He's always had his own missteps, and that's why we, personally, I think at the board we said it was wrong under the whole broad-based government. But this, sometimes the peace accolades have also created broad stability at the point it is needed most. In 2007, the country went down. It had to take the patriotism of Raila Odinga and the former president, late President Mwai Kibaki, to salvage the country from the shackles of doom. So I think peacemaking accolades is also something that can be of a good box to it. The other box is the Eastern endorsement. That is very important. Our neighbors, I've seen Uganda, I've seen South Sudan, I've seen Tanzania, Eritrea I've not seen, I've seen Djibouti, that's the Bunjumbura, I've seen DR Congo, and there have also been Somalia. That endorsement is very important. And if you look at how they've tried to put up the candidature of Raila Odinga, it is really something that is needed. And it will give him a bit of leverage. The last box that Raila Odinga has ticked is his geopolitical standing. Africa is divided. And while there are countries that still cling and think the West is the solution, the narrative is changing. And now the continent is looking for who is going to serve its best interest. That is why when China is saying, listen, leave those conditionalities of brittle institutions, the IMF and the World Bank, and come for what can help Africa, it can work. And because it comes at a country that has served both, you know, under Uhuru Kenyatta, we were East. We were really China. William Ruto took us to the West and things went south. So I think his geopolitical standing does not create a bit of conflict. And that is what other diplomats have been warning, or rather advising, that Raila must be his own man and should not appear to be a shadow of William Ruto. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my take. Let's meet in the next and kindly support the Kilifi mission. The deficit is 70,000. I believe kidogo kidogo tukijaza by Thursday morning, we should be able to do the distribution so that I can also head back to Nairobi. Nimezaekea huko, nimekula biriani huko mpaka jamani. Liata mimi niondoke bana. Asanteni.